Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. You are watching UI code, and today in our tutorial we are going to create a wonderful stunning community app in Next.JS and Tailwind CSS. Remember, this tutorial is in section, or you can say in the part. So this is the first part and the later part will be published continuously. So don't miss the all parts to create this wonderful community app in Next.js and Tailwind CSS. It's a wonderful, stunning UI in dark and light mode. You can see with having a sidebar navigations in a modern way. You can see that the theme is with light and dark mode. So you can check out the all UI element are working super fine with a stunning layout. So it is a great opportunity for all learners, beginners, right, to learn this wonderful design. And also don't forget, if you need the source code, please support us and go to the uicode.in to buy the source code. And this is truly a pocket friendly resource center where you can get all our source code. We also have the bundle for those who want to buy all our code in a single shot in a very pocket friendly manner. So visit our uicode.in to buy the source code for all the source code that you love. And please don't forget to comment and subscribe us how you like our video. So, so let's start to create this beautiful, stunning community app design in Next.js and Tailwind CSS. In VS Code, we have to move terminal window, and within terminal window, we have to specify a command to create our Next.js applications, which is npx create next app, and then specify your project name, which is UI lab for me, and press enter to proceed further. Once you press enter, it will give you the option for proceed to the next step. So press Y, and then you will find the lots of options for other installations for TypeScript, Tailwind CSS, app router, right? Select yes for the TypeScript, Tailwind, and app router, as I am doing in my tutorial. Here you can see that. And once all this step will be completed, you will find your entire installations has been done with a new project folder which is called UI lab. So the all installation has been going here. You can see that the options that I'm selecting here, and after the all selections, when you press enter, the installations will be start and complete installations done under the UI lab folder. So installation has been now completed, and you can see that everything is going well. Now we need to move in our project folder, which is UI lab. So let's move to that. So I'm here moving to UI lab and opening the UI lab project folder. In app folder, I have to remove the icon file, so I'm just removing here, and you can see that. Now I'm just going to run that how our project is working. So let's give the command to terminal window npm run development or dev. Once you press the enter, it will run the command and show you the link for the localhost. Once you click on the localhost, you will find your page inside the browsers. Now you can check that our project is completely work perfectly. So the installation has been successfully done, and now you can see that we need to make changes for our initial setup. So you can see that these are the basic files in page.tsx, which is the main file in app folder. Remove all the stuff and write your own code. We have to start from the very beginning. So I am writing here simple text to verify whether my page.tsx and installation has been working properly. So now you can see that after refreshing it, will find that the text is displayed inside the browser. So it's everything is going well. Now from the public folder, we have to remove all the initial images files, right? In public folder, generally we are put the assets of the project. So here you can see that we have different files, and we have to remove all this file, right, for our project. If we needed images and all that, we put all the stuff inside this public folder. In layout.tsx, we have to specify initial setting for the project. here you can see that these are the fonts, default fonts. I'm removing this font and adding my own font later on. Even we can also set out the title and description for the project. So we need to specify our title inside the metadata and the description for the project in layout.tsx. So in description, we need to specify entire description for the project. So after the descriptions, we also have to remove the font from the import statement. So now we have to install the additional thing that we require for our project, like icons, bootstrap, and other libraries. So for remix icon, we have to use npm install remix icon, right? So it will install the remix icon, and then we have to install the bootstrap icon for the project. So again, the command has been given, npm install bootstrap icons. So it's install the bootstrap icon, and then of course react icon. For react icon, we have to type npm install iconify / react, and it will install the iconify react commands. So I did separate installation. You can also install together all the command with a single statement of install. And here you can see that the command I have given, so please follow the step, and you will also find this within the descriptions. After the installation of icon, we are going to install swiper slider, which is a library to create slider in our project. So npm install swiper, it will install the swiper slider, and then count up to create counter in our application. So react count up. So you can see that all the installations we had done with our project, and it will install all the required library inside the project. Now let's define the font for our application, which is audio wide from the Google font library. And here you can see that I am fetching it and import to my project audio wide from the Google fonts. Now in basic setting, we have to specify the weight and a variable for the font name. So you can see that I specified weight as well as the variable name and the subset, which is Latin. I'm going to use another font for the applications, which is Golos text, and provide the same setting for that, and both font need to be import. So now we have to set these two variables for our body. So you can see that in body class name I am specifying audio wide dot variables and Golos text dot variables. In app folder, now we are going to create component folder for our common components. In component, first of all, we will create a footer component. So let's create footer folder, and inside the footer we have to create footer.tsx files. Just like that, we need to create another component, which is navbar. In navbar folder, we will create a simple file, which is navbar.tsx. So these are the two components. Now after creating that, we need one more component for the sidebar. So let's create a simple folder sidebar, and inside the sidebar we also have to create sidebar.tsx. So these are the component file, and we also need two tsx file, sidebar provider.tsx, to manage our sidebar. And in this project we are also going to create theme. So for theme option, we need to create theme provider.tsx. So now you can see that in our component folder we have 5 things, 3 components folders and 2 tsx files. So this is the complete structure, initial structure for our applications, and we will to create step by step this component. In component, we have to create navbar component. In navbar.tsx, we have to create functional component. So I'm using a RFC, which is a code snippet, and you can find in extension. You have to look out for the ES7 React Redux React Native code snippet. Once you install this extension, you will easily create functional component without typing more. So RFC and press enter, it will create your functional component. And After the creation, we have to use client directives for client side rendering. So this is our basic structure of the new bar component, and you can see that we have a written statement in layout.tsx. We have to use our new bar so that it can render on the browser. So have save it, and once you check your browser, you will find your new bar is working perfectly fine. So now let's move to the globals.css where we define our CSS. So remove initial CSS and define our own CSS. So you can see that here you find the import statement for Tailwind CSS and root to for all the global variables. So first of all, we need to import our bootstrap and remix icon over here. So let's move to the uh, globals.css, and we can import here bootstrap icons as well as the remix icons. Now we need to define the global variables for the entire project for the colors, fonts, transition, etc. So here you can see that these are the global variables for the colors, prime, second, third for white, black color, and then body color. So you can see that even also we are defining variables for the font as well in the root. So these are the variable, and it will use throughout the entire project. After that, we have to use create variables for the light mode. So because I'm going to create this theme as dark and light mode, so here we are using three variables, white, black, and body for the light mode. So for body, now we are going to create some CSS background color, and then the color overflow hidden. So these are the CSS properties for the body. Now you can check out. So it's working fine. Now we need to define font classes. So for Golos text, it's a font classes, font family. We are using Golos text, and for the audio wide, we need to define audio wide. So this two classes has been created for the font, and we will use for the entire project. For the project, we are going to use external font, which is this class display font, and we are setting the font family for the project. To set the font family, we already download class display font and store inside the public folder. We will provide you the download link in our description. So here we are defining font family. To define font family, we have to use @font face with the font family attribute, and then src to provide the source, font weight, and then font style. So here you can see that how we are defining the font face. For all the variation of class display, we need to define our font face separately. So here you can see that I am specifying differently for all the available variations for class display font, like regular, medium, and so on. So defining the font face for class display, we also need to define the class for the class font, and inside the class font we have to specify font family. In new bar tsx, we have to define our new bar. So first of all, we have to import image component from the next image, and then various images that we require for our new bar. So first of all, we are importing menu icon from public folder, you can see here. Then the other images for icon, chat, notifications, users, this all images are inside the public folder, and we will provide you all the assets so you can download from, and you will find this link inside the description. So we import all the required images. Now we need to define the structure of our menu. So inside the return, we need to define div element with the class name px 16% for padding, lgpx 16% for large screen padding, and then padding right 8%, py4, bg is for background, and the color is the body, and z index 50, border b, and border gray 600. with the fix and top 0, as well as the left 0 with the full width. This is the main div, and for our navigation bar inside this div we have to define another div with the class flex, justify between and item center having the gap 5, and this will be used for the logo. We use h1 element for our logo design with the class name clash font semi bold, text 5 XL and text white. So here we have to design your logo with the UI and another div with the class name text prime translate y1, and I'm using here a simple icon and using the left, so it will design our logo. You can see that now our logo is here. Now one changes is here, you can see the class font family, and we use this class inside our navbar, so we have to change the URL from our font face. So remove the public from the URL and save it. So now you can check that our font face is working perfectly fine. If you remove class font, you will find the clear effect in the navigation bar, but once you use it, it will shows the effect in our navigation bar. Now we have to define another div with the flex, item centers, gap 10, and inside this div we need to define another class with the items center gap 3 hidden empty flags, and one more div inside that with the relative class and cursor pointer. So now we are going to use image component from Next.js to define the image, and in SRC we have to use icon chat image that is already imported. Now you can see that this is the image for the chat with the height and width 30 pixels. Now let's define the classes for our image. So classes will be hover for the hover effect, and for hover effect we have to use invert 0, transitions all, and durations 300. So now you can see that we define the Tailwind CSS class for our image, and then span element with the class name absolute to set the positions, and background color with the second, and then rounded dash full, top 2 and right 2, text with the color black, and font bold with the text extra small size and with 5 and height 5. So this is for span, and flex justify center item center. So we define our span with showing that there are 2 message notifications. Now we need to define a simple hook to manage our theme. So const theme comma toggle theme equals to use theme hook. We need to import our use theme from the theme provider.tsx that we have to define inside the component folder. You can see that inside the component folder we define theme provider.tsx. Now define use client directive for client side rendering, and then interface. The name of the interface is the theme context type having theme as of type string, and the next is the method or toggle theme that returns nothing, and outside the interface we have to define theme context equals to create context with parameter of theme context type. Inside this theme context we have 2 members. The first one is the theme of type string having the dark value, and the other one is the toggle theme method which returns nothing. So now we have to define context provider component theme provider which receives props. The props name is children, and the type of this props is React node. So after defining this context provider, we need to define a useState hooks for theme which set the value of theme initially dark, then use effect inside the use effect, we have to check the initial value of theme. If it is light, then the body should apply the class light mode that we define in our global.css. Otherwise, we have to remove the light mode class from the body. Then we have to store this value in the local storage. So local storage.set item theme, and the value of the theme is theme. And in dependency array, we have to pass the theme. Then const toggle theme we need to define. Inside that, we have to call set theme. If the theme equals to dark, then we have to specify string light, otherwise dark. So now inside the return, we have to define theme context provider with the value theme and toggle theme for the children. So here we define this, and now we have to export the use theme. So export const use theme equals to, now you can check that in new bar we called toggle theme, so it required export of use context. So let's define inside the theme provider. So use context, const use theme equals to use context, and in parameter we have to pass theme context. So now you can check in navbar.tsx, now it's working. In our design, we also have to specify class dynamically. So let's change the code. Here we have to use template literals to specify dynamically theme classes. So use backticks and dollar signs. So within the curly brackets, we have to check the theme. If the theme equals to light, then we need to specify class name as invert. Otherwise, if it is fault, we have to specify invert 50. So this is dynamically changed, and you can see the effect. Now let's create the toggle button for dark and light theme. For that, we need a button element. Inside button element, we have to define on click and specify toggle theme method. Click for class name, we have to use fixed positions, then bottom. After the bottom, we need right 10, which is the positions for that, and px5, which is for padding, py2, and rounded full border. And for the border color, we have to specify border white. So these are the class for the our button. And then we need to specify background color, that is bg body, and hover effect. For hover effect, we have to use hover bg white. Now in for the hover, we have to specify text black, and transitions all, and durations 300, and then shadow lg, and z index z50, and cursor pointer. So these are the basic classes that we are using for that. Now we have to specify expression to manage the text which is light or dark. So let's use if theme equals to string equals to dark, then we have to specify for the true element which is light mode. Otherwise, we have to specify dark mode, right? So this text will be displayed on the button, or it will check the theme value of the theme, and then it will specify the, you can see that now our button has been created. It has a light mode right now because the initial value of theme is dark, so that's why it's a light mode, and once it will change to the dark mode. So our button has been created. Now inside the layout.tsx, we have to use theme provider component so that our button work perfectly. The button which is we have created toggle button. Now inside the theme provider component, we have to use our navbar component as well as the theme providers children props. So you can see that we shifted navbar and children within the theme provider. Now let's check what will be the output of our this code. Our button is working perfectly fine or not. So here it is output. Now you can check that when we click on the button, it will change our dark theme to light and light theme to the dark. So our button, toggle button for the theme changing, is working perfectly fine. So we need two more icons in our navbar. So copy the icons set and now change the image src as icon notifications, and then For other icon, we have to use icon shopping. So just copy it and make paste it and change the icon src image src as icon shopping. So now you can see that we added two icons, one for notification and the for shopping. Now you can check that both the icon is working perfectly fine in our new bar. And now the next thing that we need to do for the new bar is to have y- add a user section. So now you can check that inside the new bar we have to specify a simple div having the flex class name and item center and gap 2. Now we need to do an image for our user, right? So that's inside the image element we have to specify srca, which is already been um, imported. So use that, and alternate text we have to specify user. Width specified is 40 and height is 40. Now I have to use h2 element for the username. So in heading we have a clash font medium, text to excel, and the name of the user. So this is Isabella. So now our user section has been also be created in the new bar. So after completing the neighbor, we need to create sidebar navigation for our applications. For that purpose, on the top of the neighbor component, let's define the sidebar use context. So const curly brackets toggle sidebar equals to use context, and inside the use context we have to specify sidebar context. So this is initially we declare over here, but it's not defined, so we have to write the code for sidebar context inside the, you can see that sidebar provider. So here in the sidebar provider.tsx we have to use, first of all, use clients for client side rendering. So now we need to define the sidebar context. So export const sidebar context equals to create context. Remember that we need to import create context from the create library, and inside the create context we have to use two things. Number one is collapsed, and which is initially false, and then the method, the arrow functions that deals with the collapse. So toggle sidebar, and currently it has no definition defined, so we have these two things, and now we have to define our function components. So export default function sidebar provider. So this is our sidebar provider component, and inside this we have to define a code that works for the sidebar, right? So inside the sidebar provider, first of all we need to pass a parameter, which is of course a children parameter. Your props is a children props, and we know that children props is to be of type react node. So in sidebar provider we are passing children, and type of children is react node. And then inside the definitions, first of all we need to create a simple use state hook for collapse. So is collapsed comma set is collapsed equals to use state, and inside the use state we need to pass initial value, and the initial value is true. So this is our use state hooks for the collapse. So now we have to define the toggle sidebar, uh, which is a arrow function. So const toggle sidebar, and inside the arrow function we have to set is collapsed, and for set is collapsed we have to pass parameter as a previous. If it is not, it has to invert that value. So defining the toggle sidebar with the set is collapsed, and it will be updated by the toggle sidebar. After that, in the return method we have to pass simple UI, and for that we have to use sidebar provider, and which is sidebar context provider. Here I'm it's a mistake that we need to use sidebar context dot provider. So and inside the sidebar context provider we have to use our children. So in return method we have to use this, and for the value for the provider is collapsed and toggle sidebar. So now we can check that our sidebar functionality has been done. Here you can see that it shows the error just because that we didn't import this sidebar context. So first of all we have to import the sidebar context, right? And once you import it, it will be working fine. So now we have to define our sidebar so inside our UI. So for sidebar we have to use sidebar structure inside the development. So let's define a div having the class name absolute edge full, that means height full and width is 20, and flex item center, justify center, and cursor pointer. We also have to specify bg white, which is the background white, and then top 0 for the margin, position 0, and left 0. So we define basic structure of our sidebar, and then on click we need to use toggle sidebar. So it will call the toggle sidebar and our function will work accordingly. Inside that div we have to also specify a simple image, and in src we have to use menu icon and alternate text menu icon. Now you can see that the button has been clearly perfectly fine, and it's also working with the theme light and dark. So we just define a simple button for sidebar in our neighbor. You can see that. So uh, now our function is workingly fine. We also must need to use that sidebar provider be also wrapped the neighbor and children. So you can see that our neighbor has been wrapped by sidebar provider, and the children is the part of now theme provider. So uh, you can see that. Okay, I have some mistake. Okay, so theme provider, I have to update it, and now you can see that inside the theme provider we have sidebar providers. Within the sidebar provider we have new bar. Now let's create sidebar. For sidebar we have to move folder sidebar, and in sidebar.tss we have to create our function component. Now first of all we used to create use client directives for client side rendering, and then we require to import image and link for our component. Now we need to import all the icon images for the sidebar navigation. So first of all I'm importing icon home and from the public, and then all the others image icon from the folder. So here you can see that I am copying all this thing, and after the copying we have to change the name of all the images: icon news, icon shop, icon groups, and then icon members, icon course, icon events, icon FAQs, and icon reports. So these are the all image icon that we are importing in our component. Now inside layout.tsx we have to use our sidebar component inside sidebar provider, and we also need to import both sidebar provider and sidebar. Now let's design sidebar component. So inside the div element we have to specify the class name for the sidebar navigation, which are the Tailwind CSS. So first of all we have to use dynamically apply the class. So let's use template literals with the backticks, and applying the class fixed top 0, left 0, h screen, and busy. Within the busy we have to specify body color, so that is a variable. Border r, border gray, 600. So transitions all and durations 300. So these are the simple css class. With also we have to specify z index 10 for the sidebar. Now we need to define use context for the components. So let's define it. Const is collapsed is the name of the our use context, and then after the is collapse we have to specify use context, uh, so equals to use context, and inside the use context we have to use our sidebar context. So this is our use context that we define to manage our sidebar uh, for open and close. So this is the context that we have defined. Now define theme, const theme inside the curly brackets equals to use theme, and then we have to define the path name equals to use path after the parenthesis. Now we have to use in this in our div element. So dollar curly brackets with is collapse, we call the is collapse. So the value of the collapse if is equals to true, then we have to specify w dash square bracket 81 pixels, and if not, then we have to specify w dash 170 pixels. So to define our navbar size, right, for collapse and when it's not collapse. So you can see that now when we click on that, the width is changed, right, collapsible. Otherwise you can clearly see these. Now this is the regular width for the sidebar. So this is working perfectly fine. After the main div, we have to use another div inside the main div, which is for our menu that will display inside the sidebar. So the class name is menus, and then pt30 pe3 flex call for the flex direction column, and gap is 3. Then inside this div element we have to define links. So first of all we have to use link element, and for the link element we need to specify href for the path, and you can see that this is root path, so we have to use slash and then class name for the link. So backticks for template literals, and relative group flags gap 4 item center py3 ps5 rounded md transition all duration 300, right, for the transition and duration. So smooth representation hover effect bg dash gray dash 500, and then dollar curly brackets path name. We have to use ternary operator or conditional operator to set the class name on the basis of conditions. If path name equals to root forward slash, then question mark, and then the class name. So if the condition is true, after the question mark part will be executed. So apply the class name bg dash gray dash 500, otherwise no class will be applied. So let's check out. Okay, fine, it's okay, it's have a gray class, you can see that now, right, inside the sidebar navigations menu. And then after the link, inside the link we have to specify image element for the icon. So in image element src attribute we have to use icon home for the home, because this is the first link that we are going to create for the home, and then alternate text for the first icon. So this is icon home for alternate text, and then class name for the images. So again backticks, and then dollar curly brackets theme. We are going to check the value of theme is equals to light. So after the question mark we have to use invert if it is true, otherwise nothing. And then inside the curly brackets outside the image element we have to call is collapsed, not is collapsed, and return the span with the home, and for span we have to use class name absolute. Left, because we are going to use left absolute, so specifying the positions, left 81 pixels, and then top for absolute position, which is 1 by 2, and then transition, sorry, translate dash y dash 1 by 2, and bg dash within the bracket wide for the home element, and the text should be dash bracket, and the name of the color that you are going to apply is black. So text md and px4 and py dash 1 rounded md. These are the class for the span, and opacity dash 0. Initially opacity is 0, and group, so dash after the group, sorry, I'm making mistake, we have to specify group hover effect. So group hover colon opacity dash 100, transition all, and duration 300. So save it. Again we need to use white space, no wrap, and there z index, which is z50 for our span element, and save it again, and let's check out. You can see that the beautiful icon inside the span, you can see that for the home, right? So it's created now as we are looking for it. As you see that when you expand the new bar, the also the text will be appear within the navigation bar. For sidebar navigation text, let's take another is collapsed and s2 element with the text. So initially we are defining link elements, so home here inside the s2, and the class name is clash font. So this is simple element, and we define our sidebar navigations. Once you can see that home is outside that, so whenever we are collapsing our button, so it won't work properly. So okay, it's not is collapsed. So when we use this and save it, now you can see that when we click on the button, you will see your text in expanded form, otherwise only icon. So it's working perfectly fine. In app folder we have to create another folder which is called JSON data for our applications. So in JSON data folder we need to create our JSON files. So first of all, blocks data.json file for blocks data. Then we need to create another file for course data, so that is courses data.json file. And then for the events we need events data.json file, which contain the array of data. After the event data.json we need to create group data.json for groups information, and then for the members data.json for members data. So this is the complete data file folder in which we have to create all the data. We also need to create shop data.json for shop information. So this is JSON data folder in which we store all the data for the applications in the form of JSON files. And in app folder we need to create a page folder for our applications. Inside the page folder, first of all we need to create block folder which contains two folder. One is id in square bracket, which is a dynamic route, which is for the dynamic route, and the second one is the page.tsx, which contain the actual block content. We also need to follow the same structure for the other folders, like courses. Inside the courses we have id as well as the page.tsx, and for event we also need to use id folder and the page.tsx for the id. So now we have to create group. For the group folder right? We have to use page.tsx, right? And you can see that all the folder structures is following the same concept. Now we need to create members for the our members of the applications, and inside the members the same structure will be followed, same for the shop also. Now we require index, so let's create the index folder for our index page. Inside the index we need to define index.tsx and other subfolder for the indexes. Inside the index folder we need to create subfolders for the sections. So blog with the page.tsx, copy the blog and give the name by banner. Just like that we need to create course, then the course, then event banner. After the event banner we need to create hero section, so for that we have the hero section, and all this folder have the page.tsx. Then new work, after the new work popular groups, and popular after the popular groups we have to create shops and members for inside the index folder. So these are the required for the path. So now let's move to the structure for our sidebar. You can see that we have already created a link, and now we need to create all the other links. That's why I show you first of all to create all these pages and folder to create the link inside the side navbar. So I just copy paste, and now in the another in this link we are just specifying the href pages slash blog, and this link will work for the blogs. And inside the uh, path we have changed the path with the blog. So let's change the title as news, and then for icon home we have to change the icon for the icon news. So now this is the another link. We need to update all our links with the simple icons and the path where we move on after the clicking on the button or sidebar option. So that is why I show you just first link, and then I show you all the structure of the pages, and then now we are on the links for the sidebar navigation. So now for the shop we are just creating a link, and again we have to specify href pages and then shop, and then we have to need the change icon and the text inside the link, that is shop. So all the required navigation links we need to create similar like these links that we created earlier. So we have to change only the path and icon name and the text for the all links. So after the shop we need to create the next one, which is the groups. So again we have to change the href, and then you can see that in the folder we have created all these folders. So these are the for the dynamic routes. That's why we created this folder structures in between the sidebar navigations, right? So that's why now we are able to provide the proper path and the icon that we already import in the sidebar component. So this simply create our links for the sidebar navigation, and you can check out here. Now after the groups again we have to copy this, and then we have to paste for our next link, and this is for the members. So again we need to change path pages slash members, and then the text, that is for the groups. And now we have to change icon member, and sidebar navigation is working with the options. Now we have to create course and event options. So copy the same code and change the required things inside the links, and you can see that the course as well as the event will be created in our sidebar navigation. So after the courses we have to create the event. So same we need to follow the steps to changes our href and the path name. So change that path name, and then the content text for the events as well as the icon events. So now you can see that entire sidebar navigation is working fine with all these options with the light and dark mode. So our sidebar navigation is now created, and we have to move for the further options. Now for the sidebar navigation, two more options are required. One is for FAQ and the second one is for the reports. So for FAQ, we need to remove link and use button, and then remove the href from the button element. Now uh, keep the class same, and you can change the text. Instead of event, we need to use FAQs. For icon, it's icon FAQs, and for text, for is collapsed, is FAQs, and then the main content between the button element is FAQs. So you can see that now this button is created, and when we click on this button, it will show you a simple model form. So now we also have to use cursor pointer for the button. So now you can see that the our button is working fine. Now copy it and paste for the report. So make changes for FAQ as report, and now change the text reports where we required. So these two button are basically, I told you that we are defining these two button for the model form. When we click on it, it will show us the model form for the FAQs as well as for the reports. And also we have to change the path name. So you can see that for both we need to change path name, and you can see that we change path name for FAQs and reports, right? So we made all the changes required, and you can see that our sidebar navigation is completely done now and working fine with our both light and dark mode. So you can check out. Now we need to define footer component in component folders. So footer.tsx, we have to write function component and import the link from the next.link, and this footer component required to define inside layout.tsx. So inside layout.tsx, within the structure, we have to define a day with the class name pt24, px 60%, pr 5%, and for last screen lgpr 16%, transition all duration 300. And we need to shift our children within this folder and then the footer. So you can see that the footer after this div element, and now you can see that our structures is working as we needed. Now we have to define this complete UI for our components. So let's start with the div element with the px 8%, lgpx 16%, py 4, and z index 10. For background color bg dash dash body, and then border t, border gray 600, and then fixed positions. So bottom 0 and left 0 and width full, these are the for the positions. And now we can check that our footer is appearing in our design. So you can see now inside this day we have to define another day with the flex wrap, justify between, and item center having the gap 5, and then font is for paragraph is Golos text at the rate 2025, all right reserves for the footer text. So you can see that this is the footer component with the link. Now we have to define various link for the footers. So href https slash uicode.in for our source code website, and then the class name is transition all duration 300 and font semi bold. For hover effect, text secondary, and UI code will be inside the text. Now you can see that we have defined the UI code, and for text primary we have to change at text primary and the hover effect. Now you can see that the text is prime. Now another class with the hidden, another day with the hidden class mdflex item center and gap 3. Now we have to define I with the class name bi dash instagram, text excel, hover, text prime, and then cursor pointer, another hover effect, translate y dash 1 and then transition all and duration 300. So this is for our Instagram icon, and in the footer make it copy and now take the GitHub icon and then Twitter. So we define footer with the UI code link, and the social media icon is in the footer. Now you can see that both are working perfectly fine, link and social media icons. So the footer has been designed. Now we have to define all pages. So first of all, index, in index.tsx we have to write function component index, and this index component will be used into the page.tsx of the root. So let's move to the page.tsx and import our component index. Now it's time to define all the subsection of index. So you can see that here index is displaying. So inside the index we have lots of component hero. So first of all we have to define hero. In hero page.tsx we have to define hero component, and first of all let's use client for the client side rendering and change the name to the hero. Now this is the first component of our index page, so we have to use this component inside the index component. So in index.tsx we have to import hero uh, component, and after that we have, you can see that hero is displaying here. Now we have to move to the page.tsx of the hero, and now we have to define the structure of our hero section. So in main div we have to specify empty5 pb20, and then inside that heading h1 with the class name text dash 5 excels md text 7 excel, and for large text dash 9 excels, and the clash dash font. These are the classes for our heading, and specify span, and inside the span we have to define class name hero dash span 1. Join inside the span and the remaining text for the heading, the ultimate community for designers, curly brackets and double quotes for the coding expressions, and then span, another span having the class name hero span 2. And now we have to specify the text and after that we have to use remaining tags creative. Now you can see that the final output, so it is working as we are looking for, and perfectly fine. So now we need to define span1 class inside our global.css. So let's define first of all for the hero section. So inside hero header designing, so dot hero dash span1, and color where parenthesis dash dash black, positions is relative, overflow is hidden, and z index is 1. Now the same, you can save it and you can check that the output is here. Now again we need to change this according to our theme mode dark and light. So uh, dot hero dash span 1 colon after content colon single quotes position absolute, top 50% and left 50%, transform translate minus 50%, right, comma minus 50%. So to center the content, and border dash radius is 10 pixel, width 100%, and height 60%. Background color is where dash dash white, which is the variable declared, z index is -1. So save it, and now you can check that it has a beautiful effect so of background to highlight the join. And for the span 2 we also need to define class inside the globals css. So position relatives, add index 1, padding 0, 10 pixel, and then hero span to after. Content column dash, that means nothing in the content, position is absolute, and then we have to center the content with the position absolute top 50%, left 50%, transform translate -50%, comma -50%. Set the content in the center, border radius 20 pixel, width 100% and height 60%. Border is 1 pixel, solid variable dash dash wide is the variable. So now you can see that the join and word has a different effect for the span 1 and span 2. So now we need to define info count. So first of all, have a div with the grid class and having grid calls 1 for small screen and for MD, grid calls 2, and for the last grid calls 4, and then gap 5 and margin top is 10. Now inside the div we have to define the card. So for card we have a one div element having the class bg with the bg prime, rounded to xls and px8. Then for py-5 for padding vertically, and then group and cursor pointer. Now another div with the full width and display flags, justify and items, and then font icon bi arrow, right and short. So with 13, height 13, we define the icons, so you can see that the output. Now flags, item center, justify center, and text white bg dash black, and then rounded md, and group hover bg white, group hover text black, text 3 xls, and transitions all with durations 200. So now you can check that our icon button has been created inside the div element, and now we have to use another div with the flags call, margin top is 15, and heading inside the div with the class name text black, text 7xl, and clash dash font for the font size and font semi bold. Now for the counter we have to import the counter, so that's why import counter from react-counter library, and inside the heading we have to use counter component and need to specify value and equals 39 and durations equals to 2.5, separator equals to comma. So now you can see that k plus for the text, now h4 element with the text black class, text to xl, clash dash font for clash font, and font medium members, the text is the members. Now you can see that the counter is working fine. So we have to design such a card for our hero section. So make it copy, and we have to define the card second. For the same we have to just change the data for the card. So the count value to end is 230, right? And then we have to use groups, and now you can see that the second card is for the group, and we have to change the color second for the background. So now you can see that for members and groups we have two cards defined inside. It's working fine. Make it copy and define the third card, and this is third card having the background is third class, and the end value for the count up is 50, and instead of group we have to use online courses. So this is the third card for the hero section, and all three cards are working fine. So now let's design the final card for the rating. So copy the card third one and paste it. Change the class from bg third to a border, because we have to use only border for that. No background, so border dash gray dash 600 for the border, and then we have to change the value for the count up. So for count up, initially we have to set the value in decimal points. So initially we have to set the value 4 for count up, and then remove the separator, and then instead of plus use dot for decimal, and then copy the count up again and paste it. Set the value 9 for the end, and then use the icon font icon for the star. So class bi dash star fill, and set the color for the star, which is text at yellow 300. Now use this text for heading 320 plus rating. So this is the card for the rating, and set the text color white. So now you can see that we have defined our card now, and completely all card has been defined. Instead, and for heading we have to also use the text color white, right? So this is perfectly working well. In our both mode, in footer you can see that it light mode as well as the dark mode. So now check the responsiveness of the our head hero section. So it's completely working fine, but you can see that in footer social media icons are overlapping with our dark and light buttons. So we have to make changes in footer. So move to the footer, and inside the footer class last class, the hidden md, we have to use lg flags and then check it. Now you can see that now button is disappear hidden when the screen size is small. So now you can check out everything is going well and perfectly fine. Our sidebar is working, our navigations working perfectly, our toggle button for light and dark mode as well as the responsiveness of the page is working correctly.